Welcome to the Box, which is Mills and Reeve's webinar series for insurance brokers, intermediaries and their insurers. My name is James Thompson. I'm a Principal Associate in Mills and Reeve's Insurance Disputes Group, and I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Flora McCabe from Lockton. Morning, Flora.
Hi there.
As I was saying a moment ago, today is part one of a two-part series that we are doing on claims broking. I'm going to be in conversation with Flora this morning, chatting not just about claims broking. We're going to be talking about Flora's role at Lockton and some of the wider issues around that business, but then digging into questions of claims broking, risk management, and with a focus on added value and really where Lockton and brokers generally can add value to their proposition. On the 17th of May, that will be part two, and my colleagues Ben Hardman and Lucy Wood will be taking a practical look at the risks for claims brokers. So we'll get into chat with Flora. Flora and I, we go back a long way, don't we? We've worked at two law firms together, and now you're at Lockton. And I think 2005 was when we first met. So it's a very long time.
It's a very long time, yeah. Just a few more wrinkles and grey hairs since then.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah.
So you are the head of advocacy in the healthcare division at Lockton. Do you want to talk a little bit about your route to Lockton, and then get into your actually what you do, what your role encompasses?
Yeah, sure. So I trained with you at Evershed, and actually qualified into construction litigation and stayed there for a few years. And then I moved to Mills and Reeve, where I joined the insurance team. Insurance litigation, I've sort of focused more and more in my time there, I guess, moved away from construction litigation, focused more on the healthcare litigation side of things. And then an opportunity came up at Lockton to lead their response to healthcare claims. They were finding that the specifics of the healthcare sector and some of the complexities, they felt that they just needed someone to manage that, and also manage the risk management side of things. And so I joined them nearly 5 years ago, and it's a really interesting role. It obviously differs from being a solicitor in private practice, in that it's a much wider role, I would say, and you are sort of more focused on the risk management side of things.
Sure, and let's just dig into that a little bit around where do you sit in the relationship between brokers placing risks, claims brokers dealing with claims, sort of put yourself in amongst all your stakeholders and colleagues.
Yeah, sure. So, it would probably help to just talk about the general role of the broker first of all, because I think there can sometimes be some confusion over that, particularly from policyholders. People often assume that the broker is their insurer. So we'll often have people saying Locktons, they often get the name wrong. Locktons are our insurers, whereas in fact we are the brokers. So what that means is we're very much the advocates for the client, for the insured. Our role in terms of the placing broker in particular, but the claims brokers, certainly in my case, have to understand this too, because we actually tend to work together. But our role is very much to understand the insured, or whether that's a business, whether it's a professional. It's to really understand their business, really understand their biggest challenges and risks, to dig into those, and then to present those in the best possible manner, in the fairest and most accurate possible manner to the insurers, in order to then obtain the most suitable cover and the most competitive cover, I suppose. And in terms of that relationship within Lockton between the various brokers, technically I sit as a more of a claims broker. My role is a bit unusual. I don't sit in our specific claims team, but I am there to respond to and to prevent claims. That is more my role, whereas what you'd call placing brokers are more involved in dealing with the specifics of the technical insurance side of things and achieving the best insurance for the client.
Sure. And you're obviously based in the healthcare division of Lockton. So Typically, who are your policyholders? What do they do? What sort of risks are we talking about?
Yeah, so I mean, it ranges from private hospitals, all sorts of dental providers. We've got lots of out of hours 111 clients, lots in the telemedicine space, individual consultants and individual dentists, as well as the wider corporates. Care homes and various sort of mental health providers in institutions as well, and then lots of the sort of complementary health offerings as well. And then we also offer some consultancy services to some NHS trusts as well.
Sure. And let's just have a think about claims prevention. You talked about that sort of risk management piece. Can you talk to us a little bit about what Lockton's approach to that is with your policyholders? What do you practically do to assist policyholders in preventing claims?
Yeah, so there are a number of factors. I mean, first of all, it's sitting down with the client, working out where their risks are, and then working out whether we can actually offer them some specific training. One of the best indicators of risk is obviously a claims history. So it's really delving into that claims history, looking at it in lots of detail, working out whether lessons can be learned. In healthcare, it's a massive theme. There can be lots of lessons learned, but obviously the same can apply whether serious incidents have occurred within the construction sector or perhaps there's been a big cyber incident. And essentially, it's very much a case of looking at what's happened, looking at where there are trends, trying to focus on those trends in terms of tackling them, whether it's improved protocols and policies, whether, as I say, it's more generic training, whether you need to be focusing on communication between staff. But it's really delving into those issues and then looking at the best ways of training. It may also be, risk assessments, for example. So where we take on clients that have got various properties, then we need to be doing health and safety and fire assessments. So it very much depends on the client and on the sector. But a lot of it, I think, starts with, again, really understanding the client and doing some sort of full investigations with that client.
Yeah, and do you find that the majority of your policyholders are engaged in that process? Is it easy to get engagement and to implement these plans?
That's a really interesting question. I think generally, yes. I think sometimes there can be occasionally a little bit of not hostility, but perhaps defensiveness. I think that, again, comes from this slight misunderstanding sometimes around what our role is. So there's sometimes a reluctance to present themselves as accurately, perhaps, as they might do, because I think they're very concerned that we might be critical or that their premium will go up because there are issues or concerns that they have. And once we explain to them that that's not the case, and actually all insurers would expect there to be some notifications, and notification doesn't equal increase in premium. Once we really explain that and sort of hold their hand and work with them through the process, clients really learn that actually we're very much a trusted advisor and we're there to help them through the process. And by being more engaged in that way, you often get more results, but it can take the time to build that trust, particularly where you are winning a new client. You might find that in initial discussions, they say, no, we've got no claims at all. And then as you delve into that prior to renewal, and you emphasize that you absolutely do need to declare any claims or circumstances that there are, we then we'll get to the truth of it. And then obviously we present that accurately to insurers, but also just work together to deal with those issues.
Sure. And it sounds from what you're describing that actually communication with the policyholder and the relationships that you can build between Lockton, yourself, I guess your team, and the kind of the relevant people at the policyholder is going to be vital to implementing those sorts of risk management, insurance planning stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Communication is vital, and it's something I really love about the role. Actually, I think that you have the opportunity as a broker, perhaps unlike a solicitor in private practice, where there might be even more nervousness around coming to a solicitor, because normally by the time it reaches a solicitor, things have generally gone downhill more than one might have hoped. Obviously, again, one would always try and instruct the solicitor earlier rather than later. But I think whereas with the broker, it tends to be that we're there during the whole journey. And so it's very much about, you know, again, this highlighting, understanding the business. So we'll have quarterly meetings as a minimum where you're finding out how things might have changed, what's on the horizon, have there been acquisitions which then impact, you know, the cover that we require. It's very much a sort of constant dialogue, and certainly with a number of our clients, we're communicating with them on a daily basis around whether they need to notify something, or, you know, they might just have a query around a policy, a governance policy that might need tweaking. So it's very much about good solid communication.
Yeah, and can we just move on now to talk about claims and claims handling,
Sure.
and dealing with, you know, notification through the process of, you know, maybe defence panel being appointed, or just talk about your role in that and the Lockton's approach to that.
Yeah, of course. So again, it will very much depend on the client and on the policy arrangements. Sometimes notifications might come through direct to us, and then we're then obliged to notify the insurer. Sometimes it might be that there's a TPA, i.e. that will tend to be either a claims company, or else a law firm such as yourselves. We've certainly got Mills and Reeve on some of our panels acting as a TPA, where the insured will call up and they will notify that TPA directly. In terms of our role, I mean, obviously, you know, a key reason for most individuals or businesses for buying insurance is to ensure that insurance responds when there is a claim. So Lockton's approach is very much to not sit there as a sort of post box, you know, absorbing claims and passing them out and sort of observing matters, but actually to be directive and to very much be the advocate for the client. Now, obviously, the law firms that we use are fantastic, and, you know, generally we don't need to intervene too much, but sometimes there may be, you know, a difference of opinion, particularly between the insured and the insurer over liability in a matter, or certainly one of the most common issues actually is around reserves and the level of reserve which should be held. So our role is very much to really be involved in the matter from its nascence, not to simply get involved further down the line. Like in anything, it's always better if you're involved at the beginning, and to ascertain the situation and then be on top of it in terms of working out what we think a fair reserve will be, and we will make that representation if we are in disputes or our client is in dispute with insurers and perhaps the law firm. Equally, you know, we would never make trouble for the sake of it. You know, you've got to be balanced, you've got to be sensible. It doesn't help anyone, you know, to be difficult. The whole point really is to make sure that matters are resolved as quickly as possible and at the least cost as possible, and with the best result for our clients. And so that is our role too, in terms of sometimes we may need to spend more time with the insured explaining why a reserve is as it is, or why the views on liability are as they are.
Yeah, no, and that very much chimes with my experience as a panel defence lawyer. Actually, I think a lot of the, you know, you're having conversations from a different standpoint and as an advocate of policyholder, but a lot of that sounds very familiar to me as well. So anyway, so Flora, that's been really helpful. Those are all the questions that I had for you. Harriet, I don't know if we've had any questions from the audience for Flora.
We have one or two, which we have a moment for, if I may, Flora.
Yeah.
One of the questions that's come in is, what do you see the big challenges are for the broker sector during the coming months?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think everyone's probably aware that we're very much experiencing a hardening market at the moment, and we're also seeing social inflation costs as well, and all of that can impact negotiations in terms of premium. It can also have an impact in terms of claims as well, and claims negotiations. Another big area is what I would describe as the known unknowns in terms of the claims that still might come out of the pandemic, for example, and claims which may come out of the recent Russia sanctions, and how that will be affected. So those are all some pretty big challenges. I mean, I think another sort of more basic but integral for the broking industry as a whole is actually the need to sort of get out and win business as well, which is always challenging.
Thank you. Another question that's come in from Mr. Adam Green, who asks, how is strategic litigation against public participation having on the profession? I don't know whether you want to answer, Flora, or whether that's more a question for you, James, if you have a view at all.
So sorry, what was that? Strategic litigation?
I've just lost it, just a moment. Strategic litigation against public participation having on the profession. I think the word effect is missing out of that question. How is the effect of strategic litigation against public participation having on the profession? Maybe that we need more clarification for that question.
Yeah,
it might be a quick question that we can sort of take offline and respond by email.
Well, that's absolutely fine, James. Let me just finish with a more light-hearted question, slightly off the wall, from an individual who's asking whether or not you find there are any trends of defensive behaviour for certain particular professional insureds that you deal with. You talked about defensive behaviour earlier. Whether you find that there's certain people within the professions that you deal with who are more likely to be defensive than others.
Oh, that's interesting. So you mean in terms of different, are different professionals more likely to be defensive? I mean, that's a difficult one. I mean, but bearing in mind that my general experience of different professions ended more when I left Mills and Reeve, because at Mills and Reeve I was dealing with a wider range of professionals. I mean, my main audience is healthcare professionals. I would say that consultant surgeons can be amongst the most challenging to deal with sometimes, just because obviously they are so used to saving lives and doing a fantastic job, and I think it can sometimes be quite tricky for them to understand when they've made an error. But I mean, I think James would probably agree with me here. To be honest, I think that's actually the same for any professional. I mean, we all take our roles incredibly seriously. You all know much more about defending brokers, which is obviously partly what you'll be talking about next. And I think all of us, it's an awful situation being in a claim, and actually again that's where the role of a claims broker and all the lawyers supporting them is crucial, because what any professional needs in that situation is hand holding and support, and so the key is actually to make people feel really as if arms have been wrapped around them and that they can get through this, and we'll try and negotiate the best deal possible. But it can be harder with some people to sort of persuade them of that than others. But I think if you do it right, then even consultant surgeons will be very grateful for the support ultimately. And it's all about the communication and how you express it and run it, and you just have to make sure that no one makes any errors along the way.
Yes, I suppose also an element of trust, isn't there, that you can be relied upon to do it properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And and you have to prove yourself with it's hard work and putting in that time and passion for getting the best result.
Yeah. Well, we've come up to 11:21 now, so I guess in keeping with our usual timekeeping generally, James, I'll pass the baton back to you to close down, if I may.
Brilliant. Thanks, Harriet. And thanks very much, Flora. Thank you so much for your time. That was really interesting, and I'm sure that people have gleaned a lot from it. So thank you very much for that. Just a final reminder that the second part of this two-parter on claims broking is on the 17th of May. Ben Hardiman and Lucy Wood are going to be having a practical look at kind of risk management for claims brokers. So watch out for that. But for now, thank you, Flora. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and we'll leave you to the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thanks, James. Bye.